This is Pivot Perspectives with Chris O'Byrne, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they've learned on their road to success, and get exclusive access on how to implement their success into your life and business. Pivot Perspectives is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Chris O'Byrne.
All right, Joann, welcome to the show. I'm super glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I like to start with this question, which is, request. Choose a story from your childhood that you feel was instrumental to developing you into the person you are today.
I think for me, it's not like one particular story. It's kind of, it's one idea over like a few years. So I grew up in LA, but then also my family, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. They have a business up near Santa Barbara County called Vincent Vineyard. So I would spend most of my time up there. And I feel like growing up sort of like on a winery vineyard area, especially it's like known as wine country, I was surrounded by a lot of adults. And from a young age, I would just kind of follow my parents as they were talking to new people and, showing them the wine and like hearing about the process of starting a business, because it's really hard to start a business up there just because of all the regulations that people have to follow up in that county. And I would every weekend go with my grandparents and my parents, and I have a twin sister. And so both of us grew up there surrounded by a lot of adults every weekend. And so like I would often get pretty mad at my parents because I wouldn't be with my friends here back at home. And while my friends would like hang out on the weekends and pool parties, we'd be up there with adults. So we were so confused. And I think we almost, like, my sister and I lashed out on our parents because we were just babies. And so we started doing that when we were about like 5, all through high school as well. So basically my whole life, and growing up, especially on weekends and over the summer with my parents and constantly like watching them start a business and talk to people and being with my grandparents and older people, I kind of learned the basics of what it is to start a business, seeing how hard they've always worked, but also how to interact with adults and like build a very different type of social skill than I would have if I was just with friends my age here at home. So that's kind of like, it's not a specific story, but it was a really integral part of my life. And like even the day after my 16th birthday, I started working at the winery. And that's how I kind of used that money as an excuse to start Gemini Beauty. And it was like and over quarantine, I worked all throughout quarantine, like cleaning tables and making like little cheese charcuterie plates, and like helping my parents. So like that's kind of like a story to me that made me into the person I am today.
So speaking of Gemini Beauty, what inspired you to start that, and how did you transform it from that initial idea into becoming the reality that it is today?
It was a variety of things that it always kind of came together in a moment. And then that it was just one conversation I had with my mom. But a few things was growing up with my grandparents. My grandma loves making face masks at home. And I grew up with her really every weekend. I'd see her almost every day, and I still see her all the time, but she would always tell me how important skincare is, and like would make turmeric mask and Greek honey and use lots of natural fruits and ingredients. And also just looking back to my Lebanese and Ukrainian heritage, I never met my grandparents on my dad's side, but he would tell me that my grandma loved using different teas, just as like soothing ingredients and very natural ingredients on your face. So kind of having that skincare influence from my grandmothers was really, really important. And my older sister, Jennifer, is very much into skincare as well. And so she would always talk about it with me. And also my family, my dad had it, my sister has it, I have borderline lupus. So that comes like a really big part of that is sensitive skin. It's very different for every person, and everyone has a very different journey when it comes to autoimmune disease. But for me, I just have really, really sensitive skin. So my entire life, I would love to be outside, especially growing up near Santa Barbara and LA. I would be outside all the time. But for me, I react really poorly to the sun. So just years of trying to combat that and trying to find solutions, and nothing would work. I wanted to create skincare that was soothing, but also use those unique ingredients that my grandmothers taught me and my older sister would tell me about. And then over quarantine, it was like during college applications, they kept saying like, what inspires you? What do you want to do with your life? And all I could think about was skincare. But I was like, it's ridiculous to start a company. Like I'm only like 15, 16 at the time. Like that's, that doesn't happen. And I remember talking to my mom and then my dad, and they're entrepreneurs, and they were like, why not start now? Like I was in the comfort of my home, which is, I'm really fortunate to be able to start a company while I'm still at home. And so I wanted to start just to have, I just like couldn't wait. Like I kept thinking about it all the time. And then I said it as a joke to my mom, and she was like, it's the perfect time. So I started it, started when I was like 15 and a half. And I'd already been doing lots of skincare research just for myself because I couldn't figure out what worked for my skin. And then I started talking to dermatologists, estheticians, and learning more from there.
Okay. Wow. It seems like it was just a natural fit for you then to go into that as a business.
Mhm.
Totally makes sense. So who are some of the key, you've mentioned your grandparents, your older sister, who are some other key influences or mentors who played a role in your entrepreneurial journey? And how did that impact your approach to business?
So I would say my parents are most definitely my biggest mentors, especially my dad. So he was in real estate, but also I like to think of him as like a serial entrepreneur. Like he was in so many different areas of business. So I remember I watched him as I grew up. Like I would go to his office and kind of just see how things worked, but I didn't really necessarily understand what was going on because I was like 9 or 10. But and then also seeing my mom, they worked together very heavily as well. So just seeing them and how they conducted their business and how they worked with people and how they treated people that they worked with. And also like listening to their conversations at the dinner table, because they would talk about business most of the time. But like it was like a family business. So it didn't seem like very superficial. It was like everyone was very involved and very integrated in the business. So I would always ask them for advice. And again, they put me and my sister to work the day after our 16th birthday. Like and also, I mean, we could have, in a family business, we could have been like hostesses, but my dad and my mom were like, no, you're going to wash dishes, clean the area, clean up spills. Like it's just the way that they wanted to raise my sister and I, to kind of like really understand the worth of money and understand what it is to work like 6 hours, like cleaning up after people. And especially over the summer, even though it was quarantine, my friends would travel and my sister and I would work. And I remembered like talking to my mom and being like, well, they're doing this, why can't we do this? And she was like, no, you have to work and then we can do something fun and you can choose how to spend your money. And so we really, really learned what the value of money is. And my dad actually passed away a year ago, but even talking to his friends now who are also entrepreneurs or kind of in real estate, and they still can talk about his legacy and just things that he did. And I continue to learn so much from him, even after his passing. But I learned so much from my mom of just like how to conduct a business, how to be respectful, and like how to really contribute to a larger idea. Like they really inspired me to work with Lupus LA because my dad had lupus and my older sister and I have borderline lupus. So like they just introduced me to so much. Yeah.
So is your twin sister involved in the business also?
So she's a big part of the business. She actually came up with our slogan, "You're a gem," and I always go to her for advice. But yeah, she's kind of like she's like my, like I call her like my consultant sometimes. Like I go to her to ask all advice. She comes up with the best ideas, and I feel like she has a really big marketing mind. So I always go to her and ask for her opinion because she's really, really like on the spot. When I was really nervous to tell her. I remember when I was telling her like, while we were brushing our teeth, because we shared a room throughout quarantine and our whole lives. I remember we were brushing our teeth and I was like, you might think this is like really stupid, but I want to start a business called Gemini Beauty. Because I'd already thought about the name and kind of like beauty for a cause and all that. And she was like, you should, and I was like, I need a slogan. And she was like, you should, tell people you're a gem and like find the gem in you through Gemini Beauty, because I want people to find that gem in them by using products, feeling comfortable in their own skin. So like, she's really great at that stuff.
Did you use the name Gemini because you're twins?
For a few reasons. So first, yes, because she's such a big part of me and she's like shaped the person I am as we've grown up together. But also Geminis, I'm not really into astrology, weirdly. You would think I would be, but a big part of Geminis is like the duality of them. And some people say there's like two personalities. I still like, I want to learn more. I kind of know the surface level of Geminis, but also to me, skincare is very double-sided. Like it's really important to look at skincare holistically, but also specific to your needs. So for me, looking at it holistically, it's taking care of my body by sleeping more, eating well. And it's kind of hard. I'm in my dorm right now. It is kind of a challenge to like put in the effort to eat the right type of food in college, but that's like a really, really big priority for me. And then also like taking vitamins and making sure you're having like kind of that like awareness of how are you doing, and like mental health checks. And then also for me, like I have really sensitive skin, and that's really connected to borderline lupus. So then also looking at my skin type and seeing exactly what I need. And that's very different from my sister. And we all have different skin types. So I wanted to name it Gemini Beauty because everyone has a very, very different experience with beauty, but it's two-sided.
I like that. So what? I'm a Gemini myself, and I'm not big into astrology, but I have, read the descriptions. And I'm like, that's kind of fits.
Yeah, I don't know. I relate to some of it, and I don't relate to a lot of it. So it's kind of up to interpretation.
Absolutely. So what makes Gemini Beauty unique? What makes it valuable to your customers, clients?
Yeah, so our main the whole brand is built around the idea of beauty for a cause. And I weirdly, I kind of thought of that phrase even before Gemini Beauty was the name. And for me, beauty for a cause is, again, two things. Everything for me is very two-sided. So maybe I am a Gemini, but I wanted to help people find comfort and confidence in their skin. And I do that uniquely through using ingredients that are inspired by my grandparents and my heritage. So that's kind of that different aspect from other brands. It's very much a reflection of me. As it is for a lot of brands, the owners always show like a side of themselves through their brand. But for me, it's dedicated to each member of my family for different reasons. And then also helping the lupus community. So I work with an amazing organization based in LA, Lupus LA. And so we donate a percentage of profits to them just based on sales of the month or over 2 months. I'm actually going to an event of theirs today, which I'm really excited. But I wanted to help people on a larger scale, not through skincare. I mean, of course, through skincare, but like financially helping or just being part of the community in any way that I can. And I hope as the company grows, I can support Lupus LA even more. So I'm really excited to see where we are in a few years working with Lupus LA, because they're an amazing organization that provides a lot, not only comfort for the people a part of it, but it just connects people and brings people together to spark a conversation. That's really important because lupus is often not talked about enough, especially in the media. So they're a great organization just to connect people and help people find ways to, combat different like journeys, but also there's a lot of side effects with lupus. So it's important to help each person because it's very different.
So looking back in your entrepreneurial journey, what would you say is the most valuable lesson that you've learned along the way?
This phrase comes up so much because I love talking to different people and getting their opinions before making big decisions. But the biggest one I've learned, and my parents both said this to me, is don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's a bit of a cliche, I think, phrase, but it's so true because I've learned just since I was about like 15 and a half, I have made lots of mistakes as I was learning how to start a business, kind of who or who not to trust. But I made a lot of mistakes thinking that I can kind of stick with one person or one lab and solely work with them. And I do, there are cases where, of course, you should have your trust in people or in organizations and things like that. But it's also important just to see your options, because if that one thing makes a mistake, then you're out of business for a little bit. And I know I made that mistake by focusing solely on one company and working with them. And I didn't have inventory for about 4 months. And I've only been around for about a year. So it's definitely I've definitely learned a lot. But whenever there's a big issue or obstacle, something good always comes from it. And it has. So I know it works out for the best and everything happens for a reason. But it's important just to see your options. Of course, like work with people that you really trust, but also just do your research of other options, like a plan B or a plan C. And it's always good to have that.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any words of wisdom for a young person who's looking into getting into business for themselves?
Definitely take advice from your peers. They don't necessarily have to be older than you by any means. I kind of thought that when I was starting out, but there's so many people around me. Even I'm an entrepreneurship major here at LMU, and just listening to the kids around me in entrepreneurs. I took an intro class last semester, and just listening to what people have to say. It doesn't matter how old they are, but the age shouldn't be a barrier. Everyone has their own ideas and own opinions, and I've always like really liked to listen to what people have to say, because it sparks new ideas, and also just getting different perspectives, you can find errors in your ways. So I feel like that's really important, just to like listen to other people and not see age as a barrier.
Yeah, that's good advice. So where can people go to learn more about you and Gemini Beauty?
So we're selling through an amazing retailer called 13 Loon. So you can find us at 13 Loon, and they have sort of like a collaboration with JCPenney, where they sell through 600 JCPenney stores. So Gemini Beauty is in 600 JCPenney stores throughout the US. And then through our Instagram, Gemini Beauty Products, or our website, geminibeauty.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Joann, for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time today. I know you got a busy schedule.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Pivot Perspectives with your host, Chris O'Byrne. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advice on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.